Waiting for Trump's call. This opinion examines PTI's lobbying efforts for Imran Khan's release and the Pakistani diaspora's role in U.S. politics. The much-anticipated call from Donald Trump has yet to come. Much anticipated is an idiomatic expression meaning eagerly awaited. This line suggests that Trump's call is expected to support Imran Khan, but it hasn't happened yet. In fact, it may never come. This brief sentence introduces doubt by implying that such a call might never materialize. However, the PTI has not given up hope of getting support from American lawmakers to put pressure on Pakistan to release Imran Khan. Has not given up hope means remains optimistic. Put pressure on is a phrasal verb, meaning to exert influence. This indicates PTI's persistent efforts to secure backing from U.S. legislators. In recent weeks, some Pakistani-American groups have stepped up their engagement with members of Congress and senators, urging them to take a tougher stance on democracy and human rights in Pakistan. Stepped up is a phrasal verb meaning increased or intensified. Engagement refers to active involvement, and take a tougher stance is an idiom meaning to adopt a stricter position. This sentence highlights the organized lobbying by diaspora groups. Visiting the U.S., former President Arif Alvi was also said to have joined the campaign, holding meetings on Capitol Hill. Was also said to have suggests reported information, while holding meetings on Capitol Hill refers to engaging in discussions at the U.S. Congress, a key legislative center. He reportedly briefed more than a dozen lawmakers on the political situation in Pakistan. Reportedly indicates the information is based on media accounts. Briefed means provided a concise update, emphasizing his effort to inform U.S. legislators about Pakistan's issues. These efforts seem to have succeeded in getting statements from some members of Congress, calling on the Pakistani government to release the former prime minister. Seem to have succeeded implies that the lobbying appears to have been effective, while calling on is an idiomatic phrase meaning formally demanding action. Last week, Congressman Joe Wilson, who was one of the strongest voices calling for the release of the incarcerated PTI leader, met the Secretary of State in that connection. Incarcerated means imprisoned. Meeting the Secretary of State indicates high-level diplomatic engagement in relation to Khan's release. But there is no indication yet of the Trump administration raising the issue with the Pakistan government. No indication yet means that, so far, there have been no signs of action. Raising the issue means bringing it up for discussion with the Pakistani authorities. Human rights and democracy are certainly not a priority for President Trump's transactional foreign policy agenda. Transactional foreign policy refers to an approach based on immediate benefits and deals rather than values. This line criticizes Trump's focus on pragmatic interests over human rights and democracy. Perhaps the PTI has read too much into Trump's reported liking for Imran Khan. Read too much into is an idiom meaning to overinterpret or exaggerate the significance of something. This suggests PTI's optimism may be based on overestimated signals regarding Trump's personal views. Nevertheless, the statements by some U.S. lawmakers have sent the Pakistani government into a whirl. Sent into a whirl is a metaphor meaning to cause confusion or disturbance. This indicates that the lawmakers' remarks have unsettled Pakistan's political leadership. Last month, the Interior Minister rushed to Washington to counter the PTI's efforts. Rush to implies urgent action. Counter means to oppose or respond to the PTI's lobbying, demonstrating a swift government reaction. He reportedly briefed a few U.S. lawmakers about his government's policy agenda. Again, reportedly signals information from media sources, and briefed means provided key details about the government's stance. Meanwhile, Pakistan's ambassador in Washington has also been holding meetings on Capitol Hill. Meanwhile indicates concurrent actions. This shows that multiple Pakistani officials are engaging with U.S. policymakers, reinforcing the government's effort to manage the narrative. Many influential Pakistani Americans are now actively lobbying for Imran Khan's release. Influential denotes those with significant clout. Lobbying means actively persuading lawmakers, highlighting the political activism within the diaspora. Unfortunately, the political battle in Pakistan has now spilled over into the U.S., with the Pakistani diaspora playing an active role in seeking Washington's support for the restoration of democracy in their country of origin. Spilled over is an idiomatic expression meaning that the conflict has extended beyond its original boundaries. Restoration of democracy implies a return to genuine democratic governance, showing that internal political struggles are now an international issue. There has been a marked escalation in their efforts after the return of Donald Trump as U.S. president. Marked escalation means a significant increase. This suggests that the resurgence of Trump's leadership has intensified the lobbying efforts of the diaspora. Many of them supported Trump in the presidential election, hoping that he would be more sympathetic to their cause, given the PTI's allegation about the role of Joe Biden's administration in the ouster of Imran Khan's government. This line explains that part of the diaspora's support for Trump was based on the belief that he would favor PTI's perspective, especially amid claims that the Biden administration was involved in removing Khan from power. The so-called cipher from Pakistan's ambassador to Washington at the time, which detailed his conversation with Donald Lu, a senior State Department official, was used by Khan to galvanize public support. So-called implies skepticism about the authenticity of the cipher. Cipher here means a secret or coded message. Galvanize is a verb meaning to stimulate into action, suggesting that Khan used this information to rally his supporters. He accused the Biden administration of orchestrating regime change. Orchestrating means planning and coordinating, often covertly. Regime change refers to the forceful overthrow or alteration of a government, implying a conspiracy against Khan's leadership. Hum koi gulam hain? Are we slaves? He had said. This rhetorical question, presented in both Urdu and English, is used as a populist slogan to evoke feelings of national humiliation and to demand freedom from external control. Such populist slogans worked in whipping up anti-American sentiment and added to Imran Khan's support base. Whipping up is a phrasal verb meaning to stir up or incite. This sentence explains that Khan's rhetoric effectively increased his popularity by fueling nationalist and anti-American emotions. It helped project his image as a nationalist leader who resisted foreign interference. Project his image means to portray himself in a certain light. The sentence suggests that this stance against foreign meddling bolstered his appeal among his supporters. The ouster of the PTI government through a vote of no confidence was perceived by his supporters as part of a conspiracy planned by the Biden administration and backed by the Pakistani security establishment. Vote of no confidence is a parliamentary mechanism used to remove a government. Perceived means regarded or believed. This sentence outlines the narrative that Khan's removal was not simply an internal political shift, but part of a larger, orchestrated plot. Many among the Pakistani diaspora also bought this conspiracy theory. Bought is a colloquial term meaning accepted or believed. This indicates that a significant portion of the diaspora is convinced by the conspiracy narrative. Imran Khan has long been massively popular among Pakistani expatriates in the U.S., not only as a former cricket captain who won Pakistan the World Championship, but also because of his philanthropic work. Massively popular emphasizes his widespread support. The dash introduces key reasons for his popularity: his sports achievements and his charitable contributions. This popularity increased with his entry into politics, largely because of the widespread distrust of the other two mainstream parties, which had alternated in power for many decades. Widespread distrust indicates general skepticism among the public. Alternated in power implies that the two major parties had taken turns ruling, which may have contributed to political stagnation and disillusionment. It may also be a reason for a section of the Pakistani diaspora to have supported military rule in the past. This suggests that Khan's appeal has led some expatriates to favor even military governance, reflecting complex and sometimes contradictory political loyalties. But that traditional support for the security establishment has eroded after the arrest of Khan and other PTI activists. Eroded means gradually diminished. This indicates that previous alliances with the security forces have weakened following Khan's arrest. The alleged involvement of the deep state in the February 8, 2024 elections, which denied the PTI an electoral victory and brought the PMLN and PPP back to power, has further alienated the diaspora. Alleged means claimed without definitive proof. Deep state is a jargon term referring to covert networks within the government, often linked to military and intelligence agencies. Alienated means made to feel isolated or estranged, suggesting that these actions have driven the diaspora further from mainstream political structures. Growing anti-establishment feelings are much more pronounced among the highly educated professionals and the younger generation of the Pakistani expatriate population. Anti-establishment describes opposition to the current power structures. Much more pronounced means particularly noticeable, especially among well-educated and younger community members. This transformation was palpable when I spoke to Pakistanis during my visit to the US and Canada last summer. Palpable means clearly noticeable or tangible. This personal observation reinforces the claim of shifting attitudes among expatriates. Their distrust of the state is unprecedented, which is perhaps why many of them have been actively supporting the campaign for the release of Imran Khan and restoration of democratic rights in Pakistan. Unprecedented means never seen before. This sentence links deep distrust with active political engagement aimed at democratic reform. And for that, they are even willing to go to the extent of seeking Washington's support, although Khan had earlier accused his rivals of precisely that. Go to the extent of is an idiomatic expression meaning to take extreme measures. This suggests that the diaspora's actions, seeking foreign intervention, are seen as both ironic and indicative of their desperation. There are many highly influential Pakistani Americans who are now actively lobbying for Khan's release. Lobbying means actively advocating to influence lawmakers, underscoring the political clout within the diaspora. Most of them are involved with the Political Action Committee of Pakistani Americans, PAC, which has been engaging with members of Congress and the Senate to address its concerns regarding the worsening human rights situation in Pakistan and the crackdown on opposition members. Political Action Committee, PAC, is jargon for a group organized to influence political decisions through advocacy and fundraising. Crackdown refers to severe measures taken against dissent, highlighting the context of human rights concerns. Over the last few years, the group, which calls itself nonpartisan, has emerged as the most powerful and influential body representing the Pakistani diaspora. This sentence emphasizes the significance and rising influence of PAC, despite its claim of nonpartisanship. It has organized several meetings on Capitol Hill in recent weeks and has succeeded in getting statements from some Congress members calling for Khan's release. Organized means arranged or coordinated. This shows the tangible political impact of their lobbying efforts. It has also been highlighting issues related to Pakistan's precarious economic situation and other challenges the country faces. Precarious means unstable or uncertain. This indicates that the committee is addressing broader systemic issues beyond just Khan's release. Such rigorous lobbying by the Pakistani diaspora against creeping authoritarianism in Pakistan has never been witnessed before. Creeping authoritarianism is a metaphor describing the gradual increase of dictatorial control. Rigorous lobbying emphasizes the intensity and persistence of these efforts, but it has not yet been able to extract any response from the Trump administration. Extract here means to obtain or force a response. This highlights the lack of tangible reaction from Trump's team despite extensive lobbying. And it may not come as some analysts rightly point out that Washington's policy towards Islamabad will be dictated by its own national security and foreign policy priorities, and not concerns for democracy and human rights. This sentence explains that U.S. policy is primarily driven by its own strategic interests rather than by advocacy for democracy or human rights. Calling for external interference in the country's internal political matters will not serve Pakistan's interests. This is a clear statement opposing foreign intervention, suggesting that internal issues should be resolved domestically. America had been deeply involved in Pakistan's internal political matters, mostly propping up authoritarian regimes. Propping up is a phrasal verb meaning to support, often implying that such support was undemocratic. This criticizes past U.S. interventions that bolstered authoritarian rule. We need to fight our own battle for democracy. This imperative statement calls for self-reliance in addressing Pakistan's democratic challenges. But the stolen electoral mandate and usurpation of fundamental rights seem to have pushed Pakistani expatriates to go to extremes. Stolen electoral mandate is a charged phrase implying that elections were manipulated, while usurpation means wrongful seizure of power. This explains why the diaspora has become so radicalized in its demands. Surely calling for external involvement cannot be justified. This rhetorical statement reinforces the argument against inviting foreign interference in domestic politics. But the blame also lies with the present establishment-backed dispensation for creating a situation where the people have completely lost faith in the system. Establishment-backed dispensation refers to the current government supported by powerful institutions. This sentence assigns responsibility to domestic leaders for eroding public trust. The looming shadow of authoritarianism has already cost the country its sovereignty. Looming shadow is a metaphor for an ever-present threat. This line emphasizes that unchecked authoritarianism has undermined Pakistan's independence. The writer is an author and journalist. Hussain100@yahoo.com. X @Zahid Hussain. Published in Dawn, February 19, 2025.